I never imagined my marriage would be a taboo for years. Until a millionaire stirred my heart. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday like any other. Yet the air crackled with the weight of the unsaid. I stood in the kitchen, the radiant sunlight reflecting off my wedding band as I stirred the coffee. The smell wafted through the house, a blend of warmth and familiarity. But something felt off. My heart raced, pounding against my chest as I felt a sudden chill. It started with a mysterious phone call. A deep, smooth voice on the other end, speaking my name like it was a secret only he should know. "I need to meet you," he said. Who was this man? My skin prickled with curiosity and fear. My husband, Mark, was gone on a business trip, leaving me alone to wonder. Would I dare to meet a stranger? The very thought sent my stomach tumbling. My marriage had already been crumbling beneath the surface. The laughter that filled our home felt like a distant echo. The late nights, the empty conversations, they gnawed at my soul. I longed for connection, for someone who truly saw me. And then there was the millionaire. His charm was magnetic, drawing me in like a moth to a flame. I caught glimpses of him from a distance at charity events, his presence commanding, a stark contrast to my fading life. As I stood there, lost in the whirlpool of thoughts, a tear slipped down my cheek. Why was I thinking of him? It was wrong. But the more I pushed it away, the stronger the pull became. My heart thumped wildly every time I thought of his striking blue eyes, the way they seemed to pierce right into my very being. I clutched the edge of the counter, my trembling hands betraying me. Days turned into weeks, each brief sighting fueling my internal conflict. Could a heart reignite when it felt so buried? The weight of my choices loomed like storm clouds overhead. I met my friends, desperate for insight, yet all I found were skeptical glances. "You're imagining things," they'd say. But they didn't feel the way he made me feel. They didn't hear the wild, dangerous whisper of desire that danced through my veins. Then came the night that changed everything. I walked into the lavish gala. The glimmer of crystal chandeliers above felt surreal. There he was, standing at the bar, effortlessly elegant, his gaze locking onto mine with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "Glad you could make it," he said, a slight smirk playing on his lips. My breath hitched, a lump forming in my throat. This was it. This was where fate pulled us together. And in that moment the air around us felt electric. My heart raced with each word exchanged, and laughter bubbled up from my core like a forgotten melody. The world faded around us. The chatter of other guests became a distant hum. It was just him and me. The weight of my marriage, my fears, began to slip away like sand through my fingers. Should I let myself get swept away? But as the evening wore on, a sudden ice-cold reality crept back in. Mark's voice echoed in my mind. The comfort I once knew now felt like a heavy chain. It was wrong, it was dangerous. Would I betray everything just for a spark? My thoughts were a swirling chaos, a tempest in my spirit that could not be ignored. And just as the moment teetered on the brink of something, someone interrupted us. A familiar face, one I never expected to see. A figure from my past, with a knowing look in their eyes. Why were they here? Their presence felt ominous, like a dark cloud overshadowing the joy I had briefly found. With trembling hands, I turned to face them, my heart pounding louder than ever. "What are you doing here?" My voice trembled. The answer hung heavy in the air. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The room seemed to close in around me, constricting my breath as I found my voice again, trying to mask the turmoil brewing beneath my skin. "What are you doing here?" I repeated, forcing the words through clenched teeth. The familiar figure stepped closer, their face illuminated by the soft glow of the chandelier. It was Ashley, my college roommate and confidant, the one person who had once known the depths of my heart. Her presence, however, felt like a cruel reminder of a time when love was uncomplicated, and my laughter came easily. Flashbacks of late-night talks and whispered dreams bubbled up inside me, tainted by the heavy silence that now hung between us. "Two just came for a charity event," Ashley stammered, her eyes shifting from me to the millionaire standing just beside me. I felt her judgment like a palpable force, prickling at the back of my neck. "But it looks like I've interrupted something." There was a hint of concern in her voice, a subtle realization that unfurled between us. "No, it's not what you think," I managed to reply, though the weight of my words felt flimsy against the truth. The charm, the allure of the man beside me, was magnetic, but could it supplant the long-standing bond one had with my husband? In Ashley's eyes I saw the flicker of warning. She knew the fragility of my heart, and the precarious balance I danced upon. "You look different," she continued softly, her brow furrowed as she studied me. "Like you found something or someone possibly trying to escape." I instinctively stepped back, shielding my inner self from her probing gaze. How could I explain the confusing whirlwind of emotions that had swept through me since that phone call? "Let's just talk," I said, wanting to retreat and sort through the feelings that had spiraled into chaos. The millionaire's presence felt immense, yet his expression was unreadable. I glanced at him, desperate to gauge his reaction, but he simply smiled, as if acknowledging my inner turmoil without uttering a word. With Ashley beside me, I slipped away from the crowd, moving toward a quieter corner of the venue. The music faded into the background, and with each step, every heartbeat thudded loudly in my ears. "You know you can talk to me about anything," Ashley urged, a hint of sincerity breaking through tense barriers. "What's going on? You don't seem like yourself." It took all of my strength not to crumble into her arms and spill everything, the loneliness, the longing, the despair. But fear held me back, gripping my insides like a vice. "It's complicated," I replied, looking into her concerned eyes. "I don't even know what I feel anymore." The honesty of my confession hung in the air. There was a moment of silence, where all the memories, both vibrant and dark, played out before us like a montage of my past. My marriage flashed through my mind, moments of laughter interrupted by long stretches of silence, the bright spark of hope tethered by the shadows of despair. "I saw you with him," Ashley said softly, her words slicing through my veil of disillusionment. "Is he what you want?" The question lingered, heavy with expectation. I could feel the weight of my life choices pressing down on me. "I don't know. I shouldn't want him, Ashley. It's complicated." My voice trembled as the painful truth washed over me. "Perhaps I'm just looking for something I've lost." Just as I was about to spill my heart, a commotion erupted in the main hall, cutting through our moment like shattered glass. Voices raised, the clatter of glasses and gasps filled the space. I glanced back, and my heart sank into my stomach as chaos unfolded before me. A group of my husband Mark's colleagues had burst into the gala, their expressions animated with excitement and urgency. Then, as if the universe willed it, I noticed one face in the crowd, a woman whom I had never met, yet instinctively recognized. She was vibrant but had an unsettling aura about her. As she spoke animatedly to Mark, laughter erupted, and the room became a stage for some hidden drama I was not prepared for. "What's happening?" I asked Ashley, my pulse racing in double time as dread coiled tight around my chest. The sense of foreboding grew as Mark's eyes caught mine, his smile faltering for only a moment, and the woman leaned in closer, something glittering in her hand. Then, in that heartbeat, time stood still as I realized the truth about what I was standing on the edge of, a choice that would change everything. And as the woman's laughter danced through the air, my heart sank to the pit of my stomach when she raised her glass high, a toast ringing through the feud of emotions battling inside me. "To love," she declared, and in a moment of clarity, I understood that love wasn't just a feeling. It was an intricate tapestry of consequences. My decision about the millionaire loomed on the horizon, brighter yet murkier than ever as the crowd cheered, drowning out the stillness of my mind. Caught between the past and the uncertain future, I could no longer ignore the question that now burned at the forefront of my heart. Would I choose the comfort of the known, or the thrill of the unknown? Time paused, and the weight of that choice trembled on the edge of reason as the cheers faded into rapture. My breath caught in my throat. A twisted web of fate had cast its spell, and I stood at the brink of a decision that would redefine my life forever. This single moment could shatter everything, or perhaps ignite something unexpectedly bright. And there it was, amidst the clamor of hearts, an unexpected revelation that shook me to my core. Not everything was as it seemed. The woman beside Mark turned suddenly, her eyes widening as they found mine. A mask of recognition flashed across her face. And in that split second, I knew that our lives were connected in ways I had yet to uncover. My world tilted again, and for the second time that night, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, leaving me teetering on the edge of an emotional abyss. The choices before me were not merely mine alone, and the very fabric of my existence was about to unravel. The gala continued to pulse with light and laughter, but I felt like a ghost wandering through a bustling party, unseen yet painfully aware of everything around me. Ashley's reassuring presence lingered by my side, yet my focus was tethered to the unexpected revelation that had just shattered the thin veneer of my well-ordered life. The woman, who was she? How was she connected to Mark? I could hardly hear Ashley's voice, her words a distant hum as adrenaline surged through my veins. The radiant smile on Mark's face was now tainted with shadows of doubt. Each laugh that slipped past his lips felt like a knife slicing deep, revealing the chasm that had formed between us all those years. Suddenly, I felt a gentle hand on my arm. It was Ashley, her expression filled with concern. "You're very pale. Are you sure you're all right?" "Yeah," I whispered, though my voice trembled. "I just need a minute." My instincts tugged me back into the whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. I locked eyes with Mark again, but they were now smeared with a veneer of uncertainty, an expression I had never wanted to see on his face. There was no warmth there, only a flash of confusion as he turned away. His attention caught by the woman beside him, an inexplicable force pulling him closer. "Who is she, Ashley?" I finally demanded, the panic bubbling up. "Why do I feel like I'm losing him to someone I don't even know?" I don't know. Is it someone from work?" She replied hesitantly. "Maybe it's not what you think. Just because she's close to him doesn't mean, but it feels like it does, doesn't it?" I snapped, the veil of composure I had tried to maintain fraying at the edges. I could feel the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. What if she's someone he's been interested in? What if— "Stop," Ashley interrupted gently. "You're spiraling. You can't make assumptions. Talk to him. Just find out what's really going on." Her voice anchored me somewhat, yet the flickering unease continued to whisper insidiously in my mind. The very thought of Mark possibly betraying me felt like a punch to the gut. My breath caught, aching for truth yet also frightened of what that truth might reveal. With trembling resolve, I knew I had to confront Mark, but not without words of courage, words I had lost somewhere in the tumult of the night. Still, the cacophony of the gala enveloped me as fear twisted my insides, and I found myself retreating instead of advancing. What if he doesn't want to talk? What if I'm wrong? "Then you're wrong," Ashley said firmly, her eyes locking onto mine. "But you'll never know unless you find out." The chaos continued to swirl around us as I turned my gaze back to Mark. He laughed again with the woman, her hand playfully brushing against his arm. I felt an icy wave of betrayal wash over me, igniting a fire born from uncertainty and despair. I couldn't stand it any longer. The ginormous clock in the hall ticked ominously, each chime throwing me deeper into turmoil, an echo of my own heartbeat thrumming against the backdrop of the gala. "All right," I breathed out, more to myself than Ashley. "I'm going to talk to him." But just as I stepped forward, a sudden wave of laughter erupted from the gathering, drawing my attention once again. The atmosphere shifted, an electric tension crackling. I caught sight of the woman as she lifted her glass again, glee radiating from her every movement. "Everybody, let's take another toast." The crowd, filled with thick anticipation, hushed. A silence rippled across the room before the woman raised her glass higher. "To the beautiful surprises life has in store for us all." The words struck like a bolt of thunder, echoing a reality I was desperate to grasp. As I tried to make sense of her toast, Mark looked over at me, his eyes haunted, as if he had been swept into something far beyond him, an entanglement in the very secrets I feared might exist. And then, in that piercing moment, I saw his expression falter as he glanced back at the woman, and a flicker of recognition ignited in his eyes, something I had not noticed before. That bond between them was stronger than just colleague camaraderie. It was an echo from the past that sparked like a flame, the kind that imprint lasts forever. Hope flickered, but it soon extinguished as dread quickly replaced it. "Mark," I called out, desperation inflected into the single word as I took a tentative step toward him. I had to confront this head-on. Before I could gather my thoughts or the courage to face him directly, Ashley squeezed my arm and murmured, "You can do this. I'm here." But as the woman turned her head and their eyes met with a familiarity that sent shivers down my spine, I felt the ground beneath my feet shift once more. It was here, with my heart pounding wildly like a caged bird, that I stumbled upon what felt like an emotional cliff, a deep chasm of uncertainty and truth. Whatever I was about to uncover, it threatened to shatter everything I believed about love, loyalty, and the very foundations of my marriage. And just as I opened my mouth to speak, the whispers around me faded under the weight of another unexpected sound, a low, resonant gasp followed by a cacophony of exclamations. A security guard moved swiftly through the crowd toward Mark, urgency etched onto his features. "Sir, we need to talk. It's about the woman you're with." The room fell silent, and in that heartbeat of stillness, I realized that the tale was far from over. The ground trembled beneath, and this night, so elegantly draped in light and laughter, was about to unveil secrets darker than I could have possibly imagined. The air suffocated me, thick with an impending sense of betrayal and uncertainty. I stood frozen, caught in the eye of the storm, watching as the security guard closed the distance between himself and Mark. The murmur of the crowd faded into an eerie hush, as if time itself held its breath in anticipation of what was to come. Panic gripped me, doubling me over. I had come looking for words of reassurance, yet the churning tide of dread threatened to drag me under. What had just stepped forward into the light was perhaps a darkness I was not prepared to confront. "Excuse me, sir," the guard said, his voice low but urgent enough to cut through the tension like a razor. "We have a situation. It's regarding Miss Winters. You need to come with me." Mark's face went pale, and for a fleeting moment, I hoped against hope that whatever was happening was merely a misunderstanding. But the way he shifted his gaze from the guard to the woman beside him, a woman whose light-hearted demeanor had dimmed now into a flicker of anxiety, sent a ripple of confusion through me. Ashley's hand tightened around my arm, her eyes wide with concern. "What do you think they're talking about?" she whispered, her voice low, filled with an urgency echoing my own. "I don't know," I admitted, fear wrestling with a strange curiosity inside me. "But if she's in trouble, maybe it'll provide some answers, or maybe it just complicates everything more." We watched as Mark's lips moved, his brow furrowing in disbelief. He glanced back at the woman, who now appeared smaller, her confidence evaporating under the weight of scrutiny. Though I struggled to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions surging through me, I couldn't ignore the gnawing question. Who was she? Why had she garnered Mark's attention in the first place? "Should we follow them?" I asked, my heart racing like a runaway train. Ashley nodded, her gaze unwavering as we stepped out of the cacophony of laughter and toward the more subdued edge of the gala floor, seeking shadows that clung tightly against the shimmering lights. Mark, flanked by the guard, led the way, and I caught snippets of their hushed conversation, a mixture of disbelief and urgency. "We need to act quickly," the guard insisted, his voice barely audible. "They're saying she's connected to something serious," and my mind swirled at the thought of a world outside the gala. A world infused with secrets unknown to me, but all too present for them. Ashley and I ducked behind a pillar, our breathing synchronized with the quickening thud of my heart. We strained to hear every word that fell from Mark's lips. "Is it true?" he demanded, his tone simmering with barely concealed anxiety. "What's happening? I need you to be honest with me." "It's protocol, Mark," the guard replied firmly. "We suspect she's under investigation. Information has come through that she's linked to." Suddenly, the woman stepped forward, her expression shifting like clouds before a storm. "Linked to what?" Her voice trembled, pulling me back to a sensation I both feared and needed to decipher. Before he could respond, her eyes darted between Mark and the guard, growing wild. "This is ridiculous. I'm not involved in anything illegal. You know that." "Then we need to clear this up," the guard said, unwavering. "But you have to come with us." While the tension bridged a chasm between them, I felt even more torn between my desire for clarity and the encroaching dread of what the truth might be. The woman turned on Mark, her frustration mounting. "You can't just let them do this to me. I didn't sign up for any of this." Mark's expression hardened, and something twisted in my chest at the sight of their connection. The twisting bond of anger and desperation suddenly igniting like the blaze of a torch in the night. "If there's something you're not telling me," his voice was steady, but beneath it was an undercurrent of hurt and confusion that stirred something protective within me. "I swear to you, I had no idea this would happen." I didn't think she stumbled over her words, visibly shaken. I can explain, but not here. Not now. And just like that, configurations swirled in my mind. The woman wasn't just an enigma from Mark's work, she was intertwined in some darker puzzle that was spilling over into the present, threatening to unravel everything that mattered to me. What do we do now? Ashley breathed beside me, pacing the air with measured worry. Should we interfere? Do we let them take her? I shook my head, feeling the impending weight of choices pressed down upon me like lead. If she's in trouble, if she's truly an innocent party, I can't let them take her without talking to Mark first. I need to know what's really happening. But before I could gather the courage to move, a piercing wail cut through the air, freezing us both. The crowd shifted like an accelerating tide, murmurs turning to cries of alarm, as a commotion stirred behind yous. Another disruption amid the chaotic backdrop of the gala. Whoa! Ashley exclaimed, her eyes darting toward the commotion, where people began to gather in a swirling mass. What now? I turned just as a figure stumbled towards us, panic etched across their face. In that instant I felt gravity shift, and the floor beneath me seemed to tremble with all the weight of untold stories, weight that could either bind us tighter together or sever us apart irrevocably. What is it? I asked, my voice trembling, but the figure didn't answer. Instead, they reached out, and in their hand, they held something, a crumpled piece of paper stained with desperation and ink, the edges frayed as if a life-changing discovery trembled beneath its surface. I could feel the moment spiraling out of control, uncertainty winding tighter around my heart. The looming questions churned violently. Who were we losing? And what did the ink on that paper hold that could prove to be a lifeline or an anchor in the tempest of this unraveling night? As the crowd continued to murmur and move, I could no longer deny it. My marriage was hanging by the barest thread, and the revelation I was clinging onto felt like a measure of hope wrapped in enigma. I reached out instinctively for the paper, heart thundering, desperate to unearth its truths before the veil of this gala lifted entirely, revealing the darkness below. The paper trembled in my hand, fragile and full of potential, echoing the chaos that surrounded me. I unfolded it carefully, my heart racing as I read what looked like a hurriedly written note. The words blurred together at first, but as I focused, the scrawl came into view, steeped in a mixture of panic and urgency. I know who she really is. Mark has to know. If he doesn't, everything will change. A cold prickle ran down my spine. The implications of those simple sentences weighed heavy, and I felt a shiver of betrayal wash over me. I glanced at Ashley, whose expression mirrored my own confusion and fear. Who wrote this? I murmured, half to myself, half to her. Did it mean the woman's connection to Mark ran deeper than I had anticipated? Was she really innocent? Or was there more deceit lurking beneath the surface? The desperation in the note tugged at something primal within me, begging to be understood. Let's find out. Ashley's voice cut through the fog of my thoughts, and I nodded, determined to seek the truth not just for Mark or the woman, but for my own sanity. This night had spiraled so far out of control that finding clarity had become an urgent necessity. With renewed resolve, I scanned the crowd, searching for the figure who had delivered the note. As the partygoers buzzed around us like a colony of disturbed bees, I finally spotted them at the edge of the swirling chaos. A man in a tailored suit, his button-down shirt partially undone, revealed a glimpse of his own tension. His eyes darted nervously, locking onto mine and then away as if afraid of being exposed. Over there. I pointed, and we wove through the crowd, the inkling of hope that this stranger held the answers propelling us forward. When we reached him, I barely paused to catch my breath. Excuse me. You dropped this note. What do you know? The urgency in my tone matched the pounding in my chest. His gaze shifted, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. I witnessed something. You have to understand, I wasn't supposed to say anything, but what? Ashley pressed, her tone encouraging yet firm. If you don't tell us, you might miss your chance to truly help. His facade cracked slightly, and desperation seeped through. I saw Mark with her at a hotel weeks ago. They were talking, but it looked serious. I didn't think anything of it until I heard whispers about her involvement. It's all connected, and I was afraid. His voice dropped lower, the weight of his confession suffocating him. I thought if you knew it would be better, but now better for whom? I snapped, my frustration bubbling over. For Mark? For her? For you? Instinctively, I felt protective of them both, caught in the web of emotions brewing around us. He looked torn. For everyone. Look, I don't know the whole story, okay? But I overheard someone mentioning a name, the name of a company tied to her past. It's not just innocent curiosity. What company? The question slipped from my lips almost of its own accord. The words heavy with the knowledge that they would likely lead us further into turmoil rather than resolution. Something big, real estate and illegal dealings. His eyes flickered to the side, as if he could feel the scrutiny of lurking secrets. But I don't know much else. Just be careful. They could be watching. Ashley exchanged an anxious glance with me, her expression a mirror of my dread. Mark's world was unraveling like the beginnings of a dark tapestry, revealing intricacies that could tear apart the very fabric of everything I believed to know. I felt lost, caught in a maelstrom of emotions. As murmurs crested around us, I clutched the note in my hand tighter, feeling the words pulsate with truth, fear, and a strange sense of impending doom. Before I could assess what this all meant, a deafening crash erupted from the other side of the gala, followed by the gasps of countless onlookers. Ashley gripped my arm, her eyes wide with alarm. What now? I turned, shock coursing through me as I saw the commotion break apart. A scuffle had erupted near the entrance. A figure was being apprehended, and from my vantage point I couldn't make out who it was. Panic squeezed my chest. Had my fears about betrayal come true? Was it Mark? Or someone else completely? The crowd surged forward, the world blurring into a swirl of anger and curiosity. It felt like everything was spiraling out of control, reality disassembling before my eyes. And there, amidst the chaos, I caught a glimpse of the woman, the one destined to intertwine our fates, her face pale as she fought against the security guards. Stay with me, I urged Ashley, though my voice was nearly lost among the tide of shouts. We have to know what's happening. But as I pushed toward the fray, a sinking feeling told me that even if we discovered the truth, there was no escaping the fallout. Every revelation would draw us deeper into a labyrinth of lies, tethering our lives together in ways I could have never anticipated. Then just before our eyes, time seemed to stop. The scuffle unfolded toward a reckoning, and with it, a revelation echoed in my heart, a truth so profound it pushed towards the surface like the breaking dawn, calling for reckoning, redemption, and perhaps a reckoning with who I thought Mark was. And as everything converged, I felt the wild absence of control grip me tighter, knowing that in mere moments, the night would change us all in ways we could never have foreseen. The world melted around me, a cacophony of anxious whispers and muffled cries rising with each moment that passed. I felt lost in the swirling chaos, the impending confrontation enveloping me like a thick fog. As security tightened around the struggling figure, I caught my breath and steadied myself, trying to push through the tide of uncertainty that threatened to drown me. There was something familiar about the woman, something that kept drawing my eyes back to her. Panic flickered across her face, fear mingling with the anger that pulsed through her. I knew I had to help, but as I forced my limbs to move forward, the warmth of hope clashed painfully with the sharp edges of what I was beginning to uncover. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a hand reaching for me through the crowd, and instinctively, I grabbed it. It was Ashley, her eyes pleading for me to return. We need to step back. This isn't our fight. No. I shook my head vehemently. She's connected to Mark. We can't just leave her. But as soon as the words escaped my lips, I felt the terrible weight of truth pressing down, heavy and bruising. What did I even know about this woman? Why did my instincts scream that I needed to intervene? Look at what's happening. Ashley pointed with urgency, her voice nearly buried beneath the swelling cries of the crowd. If we don't tread carefully, we might end up just like her. Just then, the scuffle escalated, and in a surprising twist of fate, a man from the crowd intervened, stepping forward with confidence that seemed out of place in such a volatile environment. His voice boomed above the chaos. Hold on. This isn't necessary. He moved closer, and the guards hesitated, momentarily taken aback by his authority. In the brief lull, I was able to catch a clearer glimpse of the woman. In that fleeting moment, her gaze locked onto mine, and everything around us blurred, her desperation a mirror for my own confusion. Was this really about to shatter everything I thought I knew about Mark, about us? Mark, the name hung heavy in the air, and I felt the ache of his absence envelop me as tightly as the chaos around was consuming the warmth of the gala. He had always been the steady one, the one that grounded me. But what if that stability was an illusion? What if he was entangled in a web I could hardly begin to comprehend? The man confronting the guards managed to defuse the situation, and to my surprise, the woman was released. Yet the confusion in her eyes remained, swirling with questions of her own. She took a hesitant step back, her voice trembling as she called out, "Mark! I need to speak to Mark." At the sound of his name, my heart lurched. I scanned the crowd again, anxiety twisting in my gut. Where was he? As the tension ebbed slightly, I made my way closer to the woman. I had to know what was so crucial that it drove her to desperation. "Wait!" I shouted, and the words pierced through the residual noise. The woman turned to face me. There was something in her gaze, a flicker of recognition mingled with the desperation of someone who had lost everything. "Do you know him? Mark? Please tell me you do," she begged, her voice breaking with emotion. "He needs to know what's happening. It affects him too, it's connected." "What do you mean?" I pressed, my mind racing. Every instinct told me this was pivotal. "What affects him?" She looked around, anxiety flaring in her eyes once more as if reality were swarming in on her. "There are things about his family secrets. They've kept him in the dark, but they're surfacing now. If he finds out too late, it will destroy everything." The sentence hung in the air, reverberating through the chaos of my thoughts. The fragile threads of my marriage seemed to unravel before me. Could it be that Mark, the man I thought I knew, was tied to bigger, darker currents? As the weight of her revelation settled in, I recalled snippets of conversations, the glares exchanged between Mark and his father, sparks of anger, hidden behind layers of civility. Before I could respond, a new figure emerged from the crowd, Mark himself. His face was etched with concern, scanning the gathering with an intensity that made my heart race in time with my worry. When his eyes locked on mine, something akin to relief washed over him, but it quickly morphed into alarm as he realized the chaos unfolding before him. "Lila, what's going on?" His voice cut through the turmoil, but it felt laced with an intensity that sent tremors through my core. "I don't know," I pushed out, trembling with uncertainty. "But there's something you need to know." It was then that the air shifted, thick with the tension of unspoken truths and buried secrets. The woman stepped forward, her eyes darting between Mark and me, desperation written on her features. "You have to listen. They're coming for your family." Before Mark could respond, a loud crash echoed from behind us, followed by the unmistakable sound of glass shattering. The moment froze, every heartbeat punctuated by the chilling realization that this night would forever alter the fabric of our lives, thrusting us into shadows we had yet to comprehend. And as the pieces began to fall, dread filled my chest, morphing quickly into a realization that whatever lay ahead, nothing would ever be the same again. I stood frozen, my heart racing as the weight of the moment settled in. The glass that had shattered was symbolic. I realized a sudden breaking of the facade that had cloaked our lives, our marriage, in a protective bubble. I watched Mark's expression shift, a mixture of confusion and fear, and something deeper flickering behind his eyes, a flicker I couldn't quite define. The woman had mentioned his family, the secrets lurking in their shadows. I had brushed aside questions tinged with suspicion, believing that love could shield us from the darkness. But now, as the tension in the air wrapped around us like fog, I felt the cold grip of doubt take hold. What if our love was merely a flimsy barrier, unable to withstand the torrential storms brewing just outside our door? "Who are you?" Mark demanded, stepping closer, his protective instincts kicking in as he placed himself slightly in front of me. His posture radiated a strength that made my heart swell. Yet underneath that strength lay trepidation, a crack in the armor he often wore. "I am someone who cares about you," the woman said, her voice steadying with determination. "I didn't want to get involved, but there are forces at play, people who want to erase your family's name. Lies that have been spun for years." As she spoke, I could see Mark struggling with the revelations. The tension around us morphed, our small gathering becoming an island in an ocean of uncertainty. But then something unexpected happened. A figure stepped forward from the crowd, a face I recognized amid the anxious throng. It was Maria, a former colleague of Mark's family, who had always held an unsettling charm, as if her sweet smile was masking sharper edges. "Let's take this somewhere quieter," Maria suggested, her eyes gleaming with a calculated interest. Her tone was smooth, but her presence among us drummed up an instinctual wariness within me. Was she friend or foe? "Do you know what's going on?" I asked her, my heart clenching. But before she could respond, the woman regained our attention. "Please, you need to listen to me," she pleaded, her voice rising above the whispers of the crowd. "I didn't plan on exposing the truth like this, but it's too late now. They want to destroy everything Mark holds dear." Mark turned to me, his eyes wide with urgency. "Lila, do you think we should trust her? This feels," he faltered, his voice trailing into a heavy silence, laden with unasked questions laced with dread. "Trust is a fragile thing," I replied, limply holding his gaze, feeling my own confidence waning as the enormity of the situation pressed in on us. Behind us, murmurs grew louder as the crowd edged closer, eavesdropping on the charged exchange. An anxiety rippled through the spectators, feeding the overall atmosphere of fear and anticipation. "Your family has been involved in things far beyond your imagination, Mark," the woman continued, her eyes pleading as she stepped closer, ignoring the tension suffusing the air around us. "I only want to protect you. Those who fear the truth are unraveling it in the dark. You have to believe me." Her words, the reality of the night cracked further like the shattering glass. I felt betrayal wrap around my heart with a cold, clammy hand, forcing me to step back. "Mark, what could they be hiding? What doesn't your family want you to know?" The moment hung heavy and stifling. Just then the crowd gasped, a collective inhale as figures in suits emerged, pushing their way toward us. "Step aside," a stern voice commanded. It was one of the gala organizers, and he was flanked by security. "This is a private matter, you can't be here." To end that chaotic swirl, a flicker of hope ignited within me as I realized how deeply I cared for Mark in this moment, how fiercely I wanted to protect him from whatever darkness tainted his family's name. Yet, darkness wasn't the only thing that loomed. I could sense the tension thickening around us, as if the very air sparked with unspoken emotions binding our fates. "Lila, we need to get out of here," Mark urged, gripping my wrist. "If what she says is true, we can't leave without answers," I interrupted, heart pounding. "We need to find out what's really going on." Suddenly the woman staggered back as if struck by a physical blow. Her eyes widened, and in that fleeting moment, something unfathomable settled in her glance. "It's not just family secrets," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're coming for you specifically. You're in danger." A sharp jab of fear pierced through me like ice, but just as quickly, the moment shifted. In the background, a noise erupted, a crashing sound followed by frantic voices calling out, "Look out!" People began to scatter, chaos igniting the tension once more. I turned to Mark, fear etching its way into the lines of his face, and as he pulled me close, I felt the sudden electric pulse of reality. Our lives, our love were now irrevocably entwined with shadows we had yet to confront. And as the shouts escalated around us, the pressure filled the air, our future hanging by the thinnest of threads. In the midst of it all, I felt a creeping dread settle within me. If this was just the beginning, I feared what secrets would unfold, what truths we were yet to uncover. We were standing on the precipice of something vast and terrifying, and the only certainty I held on to was the impossibility of returning to the life we once knew. The hallway felt claustrophobic as we navigated through the throngs of panicked guests. Mark was holding my hand tightly, his fingers pressed against my skin like a lifeline. I could tell he was fighting against the swell of anxiety overtaking him, but there was also determination in his movements and urgency to escape the spectacle that had unraveled before us. "Where do we go?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, swallowed by the chaos swirling around us. He scanned the room, searching for an exit, and as he turned to answer, the look in his eyes shifted again, flickering between fear and something like resolve. "Follow me." He led me toward a side door, one that seemed less traveled, more secluded from the erupting mayhem. The air outside was noticeably cooler and fresher, and though it didn't quell the storm in my chest, it at least felt like a momentary balm. Once we stepped into the dimly lit alley behind the venue, the cacophony of the gala faded into a distant hum. I breathed deeply, relishing the pause in the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. But that relief evaporated when I caught Mark's gaze. Panic and desperation danced in his eyes like flames licking at the edges of something fragile. "What if she's right?" Mark finally asked, his voice hoarse. "What if everything she said is true?" The weight of his words sunk deeper into my heart. The shadows of his family loomed large, casting doubt on everything we had built. I took a step closer, running a hand along the rough surface of the brick wall as if grounding myself. I had to fight through the turmoil, connect the dots. What do you remember, Mark? I ventured gently, desperate to dig into the memories he might have buried. Anything that could explain these threats. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. I remember whispers. Things that felt trivial at the time, my father's business dealings, strange faces at gatherings, people I was told to avoid. They were always in the shadows, and my parents did everything to keep me from knowing. I thought they were being protective, so you were never given the full story, I mused, intertwining my fingers with his, squeezing tightly as if sharing some of my strength with him. But you deserve to know the truth, Mark. We need to figure this out together. As I spoke, a chorus of distant sirens filled the night air, creeping closer, cutting through the fog of our thoughts. In that moment of stillness, gratitude surged within me for his presence. Despite the impending storm, I felt an unshakable bond tethering us together, an anchor even against the tides threatening to pull us under. I can't let them ruin our lives, he murmured, a fierce resolve igniting. I refused to be a puppet, just another pawn in their game. Just as I was about to respond, we heard a soft scuffle from behind us. Instinctively, Mark positioned himself in front of me, ready to shield me from whatever danger lurked in the shadows. I held my breath, the tension climbing back into a tight knot within my chest. A figure emerged, a woman, hair tousled, eyes gleaming with determination. It was the same woman who had confronted us earlier. Before we could react, she lunged forward, urgency propelling her movements. Have you two lost your minds? You need to listen to me, she exclaimed, her voice still earnest despite the chaos that had unfolded. Why should we trust you? I shot back defiantly, my heart racing. Because time is running out, she insisted, her eyes wide with fear. I've seen what they're planning. This world is cruel, and your lives are at stake. You need to prepare. They will come for you, and you won't see them coming. Mark stepped forward, his determination coming back with renewed strength. What do I need to prepare for? Just tell us the truth. She hesitated, but then reached into her pocket, pulling out a small piece of paper. This is everything I've been able to gather. Codes, names, and addresses. The wheels are already in motion, but you can change the course. It won't be easy, and you'll need more than just love to weather the storm. My heart dropped as she held the paper out to us, but Mark snatched it away before I could even comprehend. I caught glimpses of names, words I couldn't decipher, but a dark foreboding settled in my bones. And if we refuse? Mark challenged, a tremor of fear betraying his bravado. You might already be too late. Her voice dropped to a whisper, and dread filled the narrow space between us. They're watching you. It's not just about your family anymore. It's about what comes next, what they will do to you if you step out of line. As her words hung heavily in the air, a realization struck me. The chaos at the gala, the figures in suits, the discord that had broken us apart, it was a warning sign. A prelude to something much darker looming on the horizon. Mark turned to me, anguish rippling through his expression, the shadow of an impending storm casting doubt. Lila, he started, but before he could finish, a deafening sound shattered the night around us. A roar that resembled thunder mixed with an explosion and a blink. The world shifted and the alley was engulfed in chaos as people rushed past, screams echoing through the air. I clutched Mark's hand tighter, but as the commotion intensified, I felt the sudden heat of uncertainty rise up within me. We have to go, I urged, panic clawing at my chest as the scene around us began to unfold into chaos. Without warning, a figure in a black suit appeared at the mouth of the alley, scanning the crowd as if hunting for prey. My heart sank as recognition hit me. The face was familiar, a specter from the pasta visage woven through the threads of broken memories, a reminder of what had been and what could never be erased. Time stopped as our eyes locked, and in that moment the truth cut deeper. We were not just entangled in shadows of secrecy. We were standing on the edge where hearts collide, caught between light and darkness, and the universe was about to tip the scales in ways we could never anticipate. Lila, we need to move now, Mark yelled, pulling me away, but I felt as if my feet were glued to the ground, paralyzed by the revelation. We were no longer holding on to the illusion of a normal life. The world had shifted beneath us, and I could feel the excruciating truth was creeping ever closer, threatening to overshadow the love we shared. In the embrace of the chaos, every heartbeat was a reminder of our fragility, every step a deepening plunge into the unknown. I was left wondering what other chilling twists lay ahead. and whether the love we fought for would survive this ominous descent into darkness. The adrenaline surged through my veins as we ran deeper into the maze of darkened streets, the weight of the woman's warning heavy in my thoughts. What did she mean, too late? I could feel the pressure building, knotting tighter in my stomach with every hurried step. Mark's hand was firm around mine, but doubt gnawed at the edges of my resolve. Lila, what if we can't escape this? Mark gasped, glancing over his shoulder as if the shadows were poised to swallow us whole. What if they really are watching? We will find a way, I insisted, trying to project confidence that I barely felt. But even as I spoke, my mind raced with memories of our idyllic days before all this, long walks, shared dreams, laughter echoing in the quiet corners of our life. How could something so mundane turn into a battle for survival? We turned a corner, slowing in a narrow street lit only by flickering lamplight. I leaned against the cool wall, shrouded in darkness, while Mark tried to catch his breath. His chest heaved, and I could see the conflict swirling in his eyes, a tempest between fear and fierce determination. We're in too deep, Lila. Maybe it's time to consider, what if we just walk away? Panic rippled through me. Walk away? Mark, we can't. What about the lives at stake? What about everything we've built together? My voice cracked, and the tears I'd been holding back threatened to spill over. The daylight of our lives felt so far away now, obscured by the night's shadows. I don't know how to fight this, not when I don't even know what I'm fighting against, he replied, his expression turning grave. Before I could respond, the woman from earlier emerged again, breathless and gripping her phone tightly. I'm not here to persuade you anymore, she said, her voice hard but laced with urgency. I'm just here to warn you. You have two choices. Confront the past, or let it consume you. I could barely find the words as her piercing gaze bore into us. What do you know about our past? I shot back, anger and helplessness intertwining in my voice. All that you've forgotten, she replied, and a flicker of sorrow crossed her face. Your connection to a world of shadows runs deeper than you could imagine. Your family, Mark's family, are not innocent players in whatever game is unfolding. They're more entwined in this than either of you realize. Mark's frown deepened. You're saying my family, they're part of this? Yes, she answered, her tone grave. And as much as it pains me to say it, you both must uncover the truth before it's too late. If you don't, the repercussions will be severe. My heart felt like it was sinking through my chest. What's on that piece of paper? What have you seen? The names are just the beginning, she said, narrowing her eyes. Your lives, your very connection, they're all intertwined in a power struggle that dates back generations. It's not just your lives that are at stake. It's the very legacies you both carry. Before Mark could respond, I blurted, this is about more than our lives, isn't it? They want to control us to ensure that history repeats itself. Yes, she nodded grimly. But the longer you wait to confront this, the more lives will be affected. You'll need allies, people you can trust, and you have to be willing to confront the demons of the past head-on. A shiver ran down my spine. The shadows that once felt distant now loomed large and real. How do we find these allies? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Trust your instincts, she said, swiftly glancing around the street as if our whispers were a threat to be overheard. You'll encounter others who know more than they let on. Seek them out. But be wary. Not everyone will wish to help you. Some will want you to fail. Mark tightened his grip on my hand, urgency entwined with fear and concern. And you? Will you help us? I wish I could, she began, but was interrupted by a sudden explosion, the very ground beneath us trembling. Debris rained from above, and the chaos of the night rippled through the air with raw intensity. We were thrown back, the woman losing her footing, but Mark tugged me towards him, bracing for whatever was coming. Run! Mark yelled, pulling me to my feet. A surge of adrenaline prompted us to take flight, and our hearts echoed in sync as we dashed down the next alley, the woman's figure fading into the haze of chaos. But in mid-flight I glanced back, catching a final glimpse of her face, a mix of hope and despair. And then I saw him again, the figure in the suit, now running towards us. Recognition flooded through me, an icy wave that seized my heart. Mark, they're coming! I shouted, panic lacing my voice. Every instinct screamed to get away, but we had no plan, no safe haven to retreat to, only the jagged edges of danger lurking. Tension hung heavy as we made our way down the alley, every sound amplified, every shadow twisted with menace. Mark's eyes darted around, searching for anything that could give us an edge. Suddenly, I felt a surge of strength from deep within that urged me forward. We can't keep running forever, Mark. We need to fight back. We need to uncover the truth. His eyes flashed with something new, something fiery that pulsated with newfound conviction. Then let's do it together, he breathed, and in the darkness, I was reminded of the bond we shared, forged through trials but now set against the backdrop of an impending storm. But as we turned a corner, doubts threaded through me like a dark cloud. Would love be enough to protect us? And just as I thought that, the unmistakable sound of a gunshot shattered the silence behind us. With a gasp, I turned, dread curling in my chest as Mark pulled me into an abandoned building. The walls felt cold and unforgiving, a sanctuary turned cage, and the truth loomed closer, more suffocating than any nightmare I could conjure. I could scarcely breathe, knowing the stakes were raising with every heartbeat. As I leaned against the wall, the world around us felt like it had narrowed to a pinpoint, a fragile thread holding us together against chaos. We have to confront this, I whispered, but deep down, I knew we were only beginning to scratch the surface of a treachery that might consume us whole. Reality hung like a blade above our heads, and any path forward would test everything we held dear. The feeling of vulnerability clawed at me, and in the depths of my heart, I already sensed that more shocks and surprises were waiting in the shadows, and just as I glanced at Mark, determination brimming in his eyes mixed with an undercurrent of fear, a chilling thought pierced through. The worst was yet to come, and perhaps the biggest battle lay not in confronting our enemies but within ourselves, as we stood on the precipice of something neither of us could predict. The air inside the abandoned building was thick with tension, heavy with the echoes of uncertainty and dread. I pressed my back against the cold, unyielding wall, feeling the chill seep into my bones. Mark stood close beside me, his breath quickening as the adrenaline from our narrow escape coursed through us both. It didn't matter how safe we were for the moment. The walls felt like they were closing in, and I wanted nothing more than to escape both the physical space surrounding us and the emotional storm raging within. Lila, he whispered, turning to face me. His eyes were blazing with a mix of resolve and fear that mirrored my own. We need to talk about this. If we're really going to confront whatever's coming, we can't just run anymore. His voice was steady, but I could hear the faint tremor beneath, the acknowledgement that we were facing something that could shatter everything we had ever known. I nodded, desperation mixing with clarity. I know. We can't let them control us anymore, I replied, forcing strength into my voice. We need to unearth the truth, everything they've hidden from us since the beginning. The enormity of the task felt suffocating, yet a sense of purpose flickered to life in the dark corners of my heart. Is love really enough to fight against all of this? He asked quietly, uncertainty lining his brow. What if we confront them and everything falls apart? I can't lose you, Lila. I just can't. It was as though the hollow echo of those words unleashed all the fears we both harbored deep down. I reached out, my fingers brushing his gently, grounding us both in this chaotic moment. Mark, love isn't merely a shield. It's the fuel that can guide us through the shadows, but we have to confront the truth together. We have to be willing to face what's hiding beneath the surface. He nodded slowly, but I could see the worry etched across his features. What if we dig things up that we can't put back down? What if there are truths so buried they might change everything we know? For a moment, the silence enveloped us, a thick blanket of tension. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart, the fear clawing within me rooted in the unknown. Then, like a whisper in the quiet, a realization struck me. Perhaps we need to accept that change is inevitable, Mark. Just because we're afraid doesn't mean we should retreat. We owe it to our Silvesto, our Levito, find out what binds us and what threatens to tear it apart. Before Mark could reply, a noise broke the stillness of our secluded space, a distant sound of footsteps echoing through the hall outside, accompanied by the murmur of voices. My heart raced once more, and I felt the raw panic rise, burrowing its way into the pit of my stomach. What do we do? I squeaked, glancing towards the shadows that cast long fingers of uncertainty against the walls. Mark's eyes narrowed, his expression turning serious as he scanned the area. We hide. We need to remain unseen, at least until we're sure of who it is. And so we huddled together in the shadows, holding our breath as footsteps approached, muffled voices growing clearer, bigger than the fear thrumming between us. Did you hear? They're saying there's a connection, a voice said, low and urgent. Everything from the gala. It's all tied back to the family. We need to act fast. What if they've already figured it out? We don't know what they know. We need to cleanse this before it spirals out of control. Another voice hissed. Mark and I exchanged alarmed glances, the weight of those hushed words crashing down on us. They were seeking something. They were after us. A new undercurrent of fear surged through me. It was one thing to wrestle with the darkness within our families, but to find that there were forces beyond them, beyond us, aiming to ensure that those shadows remained untouched, was chilling. We needed answers, and quickly. Let's move to the back, away from the door, Mark whispered, his eyes holding a determination I suggested we emulate. I nodded, and together we slipped deeper into the room, moving like shadows woven into darkness. Just as we neared the back of the building, a loud crash echoed behind us, splitting the air with chaos and urgency. No, Mark murmured, his expression turning grave as he realized we had just run straight into a trap. Before I could process what was happening, the faint outline of a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the doorway, his expression one of unyielding menace. It was the man from the gala, the figure in the suit harboring danger like a blade hidden amongst silks. Leaving already? He taunted, a smirk playing at the edges of his mouth. Not so fast. You don't get to run from this. You have information we need. I felt fear surge through my veins, a whole new level of danger creeping closer. Mark instinctively stepped in front of me, protective but trembling from the threat looming before us. What do you want? Everything in due time, my friend, he replied, his tone cool and calculated. But first, I think it's time we had a little chat about the truth you two seem so eager to uncover. You'll want to listen closely, as for all the noise you've stirred, it might just save your lives. The world tilted anew, shifting in unpredictable ways, and I realized we were standing at an unimaginable crossroads. I grasped Mark's hand tighter, entwining our fates in that moment, ready yet terrified to face whatever darkness our love had summoned forth. Maybe this was the moment the universe had been leading us towards, a confrontation bound to rewrite our future, unveiling all the secrets that had long sat idle in the shadows, waiting for the right time to burst into the light. As the air grew tense with anticipation, I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the revelations to come. I had to believe that together we could navigate this uncharted territory, armed with the bond we had fortified through trials and fear, forging ahead into the unknown. Whatever comes next, Mark, we do this together, I promised, conviction steadying my resolve. With a nod, he turned back to face the figure in the suit, grounding each word in the weight of our union. This was a tour moment to confront our past, our families, and whatever shadows clung to the truth. And I knew deep within me that by facing those shadows, we would finally take control of our story, reclaiming the light they had sought to extinguish. In that moment, framed between shadows and light, I realized that love had always been our weapon, and through its strength, we were ready to unearth the truth that would set us free. A truth that may consume us or one that may redeem us. I whispered to Mark, and together, we took a step forward, ready to embrace whatever was waiting in the depths of darkness. With our hands clasped and our hearts aligned in determination, we steeled ourselves for the turmoil about to unfold, knowing that no matter what awaited us, love and truth would light the path ahead. In that moment of uncertainty, the shadows didn't scare me anymore. Instead, it ignited a fire within, propelling us to move forward, to journey into the heart of everything that lurked beneath. And as we faced the uncertainty ahead, I held firmly to the thought that perhaps the greatest battles we would ever face would be the ones that led us back to ourselves.